Welcome to Come Back Kid.
Thank
Remy!
Caroline!
Hi!
Oh my god!
I'm so excited you're here.
I can't believe I actually made it here. I'm so excited we did this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Oh.
So let's start. I want to hear about the beginning of your sobriety. How did you first get sober and what was that like?
It is the longest, most protracted entrance into sobriety. Alcoholism in my family and drug use, like in many families, is generational. So this is a generational cycle I was born into. And because of that, I was also aware of this program as long as I can remember. And a lot of people, like, I am in a 12-step program, first of all. Like, that's just to give that context. But I feel like when I meet other people in 12-step who have generational experience with it, it's very positive. I lost a parent in this program. I lost a parent with 3 weeks clean in this program that I'm in. And that really skewed my emotions towards it. But I started trying to get sober when I was 24. And I'm 43. So it's been a solid 19 years of effort, which doesn't mean 19 years sober. But I started trying to get sober when I was like 24 after I was court carded into this program. I had a DUI for at the time I was like, this is the most bullshit DUI ever. And it actually kind of was. Not that I hadn't done things that are very illegal and very dangerous and I should be very ashamed of many times. But the one time they caught me was like the night I had a designated driver, the night I had done everything right. And then my designated driver got a concussion in a bathroom. And so I sat in a Denny's drinking coffee until I thought I could drive home. And I got arrested with a .09 blood alcohol content. .08 is the legal limit, so it was very close. And I was so mad about that, and I thought I did not deserve that, but I deserved so much worse than that. The fact that I had the only legal consequence I ever had for all my years of being ridiculous was one tiny bottom of the scale DUI is insane to me. There are so many things that should have gone so much worse. And that was the best case scenario. I know that now. I didn't know that then. I was so mad. But what a gentle introduction to the legal system. What a gentle little 3 days in prison instead of a long sentence. What a gentle experience. Not that any element of it was gentle at all. But it was the absolute least that could have happened to me to expose me to the idea of consequences on that level. And part of the many, many consequences that I had was the idea that, I had to do multiple days in prison. I had a sentence. It was really silly. It wasn't just the jail drug tank. I had 72 hours in, turn yourself in, go through the strip search, all that stuff, which was so eye-opening. The food. It was a lot. But I got court carded in. I went and I had to take the anti-alcohol class, this 6-week course, and then I had to get a court card signed. And I came to a meeting. I was like, I know I hate it here. I already hate it here. I know how this went for my family. I don't like you all. I don't like it here. I don't want to be sober. It was a really rough time in a life that I had let become really rough. And looking back at it now, I think when I listened to people in the room, I was so afraid that getting sober meant that I would have to put down all of the things that made me what I thought was cool, that made me hard, that maybe made me able to survive really rough situations unscathed. All of the armor that I had built up. And using was such a big part of that because that let me escape the consequential feelings. A hangover was so much better than facing any of the consequences emotionally for the things that I was going through. So I was really afraid of of laying down that armor. And because of that, after I came into AA, or the 12-step program, I don't know if you allow us to say AA or edit it out. After I came into that program, it took me 9 years to put together more than a month of continuous sobriety. I was looking around, I'm like, I am the only real alcoholic here. You all think you're having such a great time and you're so happy. And how do you survive? Like, how do you live with yourself if something bad were to happen and you didn't have that armor? Like, how do you live with yourself going to bed every night thinking you can just wander around with no protection, with no escape hatch, and nothing bad is going to happen to you? You're just smiling through and paying your bills. How do you have so much certainty? And I resented it because as far as I understood, I desperately needed those substances to cover up how different my life was from the one that television and the movies and your friends and all the best case scenarios that everyone presents that's promised to us in like society, how different my life looked than that. And I didn't want to make sense of it. I just wanted to survive it for as long as I could reasonably survive it and then disappear from it. And drugs and alcohol were the reason that that was possible as far as I was concerned. So it took me 9 years, and this is a very long story though. Like, thank you for listening. But I finally got the memo after I had had a kid using. I had gotten married and gotten divorced, and my ex-husband was really sick. Everything was going as poorly as I was afraid it would, because that's the life I was creating, as it was the life I was the reason I was so protective of myself was because that's the situation I was creating for myself. I had such certainty that it would suck because I acted in ways that made it suck. And so I was living in a warehouse with my son and this guy, and I was just like, I was at the end of my rope. I was completely suicidal. My mom knew this. She knew a dying person when she saw it after, like I said, this is generational. She's like, I'm just taking your kid away. I was giving blood at the children's blood bank, be at the children's hospital, because I wanted to get used to needles so that I could end it quietly. But I also wanted to be a good person. So I also wanted all my blood to go somewhere that other people could use it. It was a very fucked up mentality. And I woke up one morning, I'm like, okay, cool. We're on this path. That's fine. That's your best thinking. But what would make you actually happy? And there was just this voice that I woke up to, hungover as usual, that was like, you're going to move to New York and you're going to get sober. And it clicked. It clicked that fast. I moved 2 weeks later. I got my ass in a seat in program like a week after that. And it took me about a year of kicking and screaming, because I'm really good at kicking and screaming. And that was how I got sober. The last time I used anything was a little bit before Christmas, which is also just a little bit before the anniversary of my dad passing. And I was sitting at my ex-husband's house, who was very sick, so he had all these prescriptions, and I'd taken a couple of meds from his cabinet, and I was having some tequila. And at this point, I had been through like a medical detox, like an outpatient medical detox, and like a lot of really weird things. And a friend of mine called, and he's like, he's like, what are you up to? And I was like, oh, I'm just hanging at Vans doing this. He's like, why are you still doing this? Like, you've done the hard part. You got weaned off the really addictive things. Like, let it go. And I was just like, okay. And that was it. There was no like big flash of like, this is when this is really going to happen. It was just like somebody who I didn't even particularly respect that much, just being like laying out something I didn't want to hear, which is like, you've done the hard stuff. You're just clinging for no reason. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, okay, you're right. There was nothing defensible at that point. I had done all the hard stuff. I did not want to be using anymore, and I still was. And there was nothing left for me to defend. So that was that. That is the sobriety date I carry with me to this day. And that'll be 9 years ago in December. It's been a minute now.
Wow. Yeah. How did you get through the kicking and screaming of the first part of sobriety?
Well, I kicked and screamed for 10 years, so I didn't. I did it until I was exhausted. I kicked and screamed as hard as I could. I had to be right. When you are someone who has had a lot of trauma go down early in life, what often comes with that is a lot of coping mechanisms that you develop really young before your brain is ready to develop them. So it's like an 8-year-old has devised ways for you to cook for yourself and pay your taxes, and you keep using those. So I came into adulthood with a fully formed set of tools for everyday life that were made by a traumatized, confused child. And part of those was just incredible pride at every day I managed to live through another ridiculous set of circumstances. So there was so much of a dopamine reward for me in living through something else horrible that it was impossible for me to get through the kicking and screaming. I just wore myself out. I genuinely wouldn't have lasted much longer. I got tired. Like, it was such a resignation when I finally gave it up. And I don't give things up. I still love nicotine. Everyone, I think, has seen me doing my best to hide a vape on myself. I've walked runway shows with a vape hidden in the clothes. I have been photographed for magazines with a vape tucked in the folds of the cover shot. Like, it's like, or a cigarette burning just offset. Like, I hate giving up anything. My addictions hold me together as far as I'm concerned. I'm not an angel. I love anything destructive unhealthily, and that's why it took me so long. Like, I really had to wear myself out. There was nowhere new for me to go on my ex-husband's stash of Norco and some tequila in a mug that I hadn't been before, and I had to try so hard so many times just declaring there was. But you get a head full of recovery, and eventually you hear it. You hear it bouncing around in there. But no, I didn't get through the kicking and screaming. I kicked and screamed until I couldn't kick and scream anymore.
Can you talk about the importance of community in the program?
You wrote that one for me. People are community beings. I don't think there's anything in life that isn't made better or more abundant by being alone. We are communal animals. We don't procreate without other people. We learn from other people. And throughout history, if you look at every society, there's always been community hubs, places where people meet, places where people regularly spend time together, family units of where people interact regularly. And now we live in an age where we have less community physically. We have incredible community digitally, which has helped so many people, but it's also given us one more way to slide out of in-person community. For me, community in recovery has been the basis of my recovery. I'm a slippery person by nature. I love to find a loophole. And now raising a teenager who is my son, it's like, oh my God, he loves a loophole too. How am I going to get around this? But I'm a slippery person. And if I'm not showing up for the same people every day, if I'm not totally in love with the people around me, which is a choice, by the way. It's not like, oh, I stumbled into the perfect people. If I'm not choosing the people around me every day, then what's going to happen the minute I'm not in my best thinking? If I'm not choosing to be a part of everyone around me and letting them support me and letting them help me in finding the right way, I wasn't born to solve my own problems. I'm the person that caused the problems. Being part of something bigger than me, whether it's like my next door neighbors or my child or my family or my recovery community or the universe at large, being a small part of something bigger allows me to shed the idea that I have to be everything to me. And the minute I shed that idea, I no longer have to solve my own problems. I am the person that made those problems. Those things came from me. So I'm not the most qualified person to fix them. If my kid dropped something when he was young, I wouldn't ask him to glue it up. It's like, you are the thing, the person, let's hand it to someone more qualified. And it's the same. It's very cliche in this program to say, I have a sponsor who knows she's my sponsor, but I do. And I picked her because even when I was at my most kicky and screamy, I still respected her. And she taught me how to respect everyone the way I respected her. And that doesn't mean they're all my best friends, but it means that the community around me is, if I can play a small part in that, and just play my small part in that, I'm doing exactly what I should be doing.
What is something that somebody told you in early recovery that made a big impact on your recovery?
I hated it so much. I was told more will be revealed, and I almost smacked the girl that told me that. It's like, that is bullshit. Clearly, that is bullshit. No kidding, more will be revealed. That doesn't help me now. I want to know everything now. Like, I was in a rough situation, and this girl who was trying to make me feel better, it was like, more will be revealed. Oh my God. No shit, Sherlock. More will be revealed, and I want nothing to do with that. That's later. I'm hurting now. Fix it now. I had like 6 months sober, and I was on like a trip, and this girl was like 20, and I was like 35, and I was just like, what are you even, like, get out of my face. I'm already not drinking, and now you want me to swallow that garbage. And it was the best advice anyone has given me ever.
Yeah.
Once I stopped kicking and screaming, which is a theme, I was so mad at that advice, and I was so mad because it struck a nerve. And I didn't want it to strike a nerve. I wanted there to be an easier way than this, but there was none. The truth is that anything that happens in the moment, no matter how much it feels like the end of the world, is just something that happened on a Tuesday or a Wednesday at 4 p.m. or 6 p.m., and then things keep going. No matter how big it is or how small, like you had a ham sandwich or you lost a parent, like the next minute is going to come and the next hour is going to come. And with those things come new problems and new solutions and new information. And if we just take this second at a time and this minute at a time and this hour at a time, this thing, whether it's huge or small or anything in between, will become part of the story. The solutions to it will become apparent. If they don't, we deal with it however we need to deal with it, and we accept our consequences when we accept them, when we need to accept them. But there is nothing that stays static in a moving time.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow. This is a hard one, but I'm going to ask it.
Can I have lip balm first?
Please.
And my vape.
Please.
Thank you.
Casamara Club makes refreshing, aromatic botanical sodas with a clean, extra dry finish. You can find Casamara Club sodas in Michelin star restaurants, cozy neighborhood bars, and specialty shops, or online at casamaraclub.com. But today, they sent us some of their flagship soda, Alta, to try. They say it's an Italian-style aperitivo with a blend of Italian citrus and spices. Should we open these up and see for ourselves? Take us into your darkest moment in active addiction.
Oh, God. That's not hard the way I thought it would be hard. I have not thought about that place in a long time. That's actually kind of interesting. Wow. I think the things that would sound dark to people, I thought at the time were so fun and so funny. And I think this is something a lot of addicts can relate to. Like, I have done some things while using that I laugh hysterically. To this day, I am still that very dark, very twisted person who is like, how did I get here? And why do I continue to, how did I get into this spot? It's hysterical, and it is not hysterical. Like, let me just lay that out right now. The things I laugh at in my own life are inappropriate. They are dangerous. Many people have died in doing similar things. There is nothing to laugh about. I lost my own father to a heroin overdose. I lost both of his brothers to complications from addiction. I've lost so many people to this disease. So when I laugh about this, it is not to say that it is funny, and I'm not making light of it in an unhealthy way or in a callous or uninformed way. I laugh about it because that's how messed up I was. That I thought that these things I was doing that were hilarious to me, it's uncomfortable, you know? Like, you look back and it's still funny because it was funny in the moment, but I know. I did it knowing that I was an addict. I did it knowing that I lost people all my life to this disease. And it was still funny because it was just such a dark time that what could it be but funny? But there was definitely, there was a time when my choices accidentally, like through no knowledge of my own, landed me in with the Mexican cartel, which was fine. I just laughed when I found out. I was naked, laying on a bar with members doing body shots off of me and cocaine. And I thought that was hysterical. Let me be clear. That is not hysterical. The darkest part of this is that I thought it was funny because I was that desperate. That was the place that being that hard led me to. The idea that I could handle anything. The idea that I was unscatable made me make decisions that put me in dangerous places because I did not think that a life of comfort and love was accessible to me. So I put myself ever further from that. I think that moment is the darkest one that I can describe that would get across the best to people how dark, like, it wasn't just dark, it was fast and it was hard, and I wanted it that way. I didn't want things soft or easy. That felt like a place that I didn't know, I didn't want to know, and I didn't deserve to be. I felt at home when things were so off the rails that they sound now, when I say it in a studio with two sober people having water, it sounds irredeemable. It's like, what movie plot are you describing? That doesn't happen to people, but it does. But it takes a lot of work on your end to get to that place. And I was not ashamed of it at all. I wasn't freaked out by it. I wasn't ashamed of it. In that moment, as far as I cared, I was right where I belonged, doing exactly the thing that I should be doing. And that's what's so dark about it.
If you had 5 minutes with Remy at her lowest point in active addiction, what would you say and do?
Absolutely nothing. She would not have listened. I would have smacked me if I knew me now.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't have sponsored me.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't have trusted me. It's not what I would say to her. It's that she would call me fat. She would wonder how I lived to be this old. She was not nice. And she didn't want help. There's nothing I could say to me then that would have gotten through. There was nothing anybody said that got through. I had to get exhausted for myself. But if I were talking to someone even a centimeter more accepting than I was, even a centimeter more open to that, I would say, like, whatever you've done, I've probably been there. I swear to God, you can still be you. And you aren't losing yourself or anything important or central to you by letting go and softening up and accepting help. I would have smacked me for that and kicked me out of my house. But for anyone else who's in that situation, there is no one, you're not the you're not the bottom of the barrel case you think there are. There are 1,000 people who have done it harder than you, who've been more rock and roll than you, who've done more fucked up things. And that's true for me too. But even though that was like my calling card, was like, let's be weird. Let's make it dark. Let's make it weird. Let's make it scary. Like, there's always someone who's been scarier and has come back to tell the tale. And you won't lose yourself in it. You'll lose the parts that you never needed to begin with, but you won't lose the parts that matter.
I love that. You lose the parts you never needed to begin with. It's so good.
Thank you.
That's so true. You have a 16-year-old son.
I have a 16-year-old son.
Who's adorable.
Thank you so much.
How has your recovery informed your parenting?
Well, I get to parents. That's the first big thing. My son moved back in with me. Not until last year. This has been a long, slow recovery. Recovery informs all of my parenting. The first time my sponsor challenged me to live a life where I didn't yell at the people I loved, I thought she was crazy. And now that is a tenet of my parenting. Like, if you love someone, you're not yelling. Like, what is that saying if you're yelling? It is my ego getting assuaged. It is the inner child in me screaming to be heard, but it's not effective communication. And if you love someone, you owe them effective communication. So we communicate. It's intentional. He knows that he can bring anything to me because I will not yell. I refuse to. I think I've yelled. I have been loud, but not in the way I used to yell once. And that's the only time I've ever had to. And this is a 16-year-old boy. They drive you crazy sometimes. But in recovery, I know that having a kid who trusts me is infinitely harder than any other task in parenting. Like, if anybody remembers being 16, I didn't trust my family at all. The hardest thing I can do, and the best thing I can do as a parent, is to let my son know that I'm here to guide him, not to punish him, not to judge him, that he can bring me anything and I will hear it and I will help him with it without enabling him, but that I am not here to punish him for learning how to navigate the world in his own way. And I think that's the most profound thing. That's recovery, right? We come in and we're like, what do I deserve as an addict? And it's punishment. Does anybody come into sobriety thinking they're not going to be looked down at, or that does anybody come in not embarrassed, ashamed, or terrified of the punishment that's in store for them? I did. I was afraid of all of that. And I received nothing but love. So how do you not carry that into your parenting? How do you not look at everyone around you, especially where you have a position of authority, where you have an unequal relationship, and you're in a leadership position? How do you come at that after you've been shown so much grace? How do you come at that with anything but the intention to be that same grace? To me, that's the center of where I parent from, which isn't to say it's easy. He's a 16-year-old boy, but it's the relationship we have is easy. Sometimes I want to strangle him, but I love him more than that. So
it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the modeling industry. Okay. And what is your relationship to it in the context of your sobriety?
I have been a model for 20 plus years.
Which is so cool, by the way.
Thank you.
So badass. Yeah.
It is a complicated relationship. I own my career now, which I didn't when I started, and I didn't when I was using. Which is to say that for the last 6 months, I have taken a step back because I can. I don't want to go do that right now, which is the first time in my life I've ever been self-assured enough to be like, I don't want to do that. I don't need to do that. And I'm like 43. It's time. It's okay. In model years, I'm dead. So I came in using, and this is an incredible industry to come into if you want to use drugs and alcohol. You will never be prettier while using than when you are using in the fashion industry. And if you like pretty things, that's a very meaningful thought. So I mean, one of my agents, when I was signed, would hand me party drugs at parties. This was not something that was looked down on in any way. It was a way to stay thin. It was a way to be popular. And if anyone who says the fashion industry is not in part driven by relationships is lying. And anyone who says people don't bond over drugs is also lying. It was a way to fit in. And I came in at a time when thin was everything. It was 2003. It was that right at the end of that Kate Moss era, when we went into that era that was truly terrifying. Like, a girl died every year. Like, I know girls who are not with us anymore because this industry was too much for their tiny bodies to handle. And it was, drugs made it easier until they made it harder. And I took some time off. I moved to LA. I left New York and moved to LA because I could not hack being that thin. And that's a lot to unpack. There are good parts about it. My body couldn't handle being a size 00 and 6 feet tall and broad-shouldered. Like, I'm not a big person now, but I was like 30 pounds less. And I'm skinny. I'm still really skinny. I'm like a 6 foot tall US 4, French 36. That is not a very big body. It's tall, but it's not big. But it used to be very, very small. And maintaining that was hard. It was harder because of drinking and using. Do I think I could have done it healthily? No. But do I think I'm optimized my situation at all? No. It was a shit situation for me to be in, and I handled it terribly. It's complicated. Like, there are things about the industry that were horrible then, and there were things about me that were just ridiculous then. I was put in a terrible situation, and I responded as poorly as I could, which was to say by partying as much as I could with the sketchiest people I could find, to the point where my first real protracted time in France, some German editor, when I walked into my casting with them, looked at me, he says, "Oh, I hear you're the new Gia." And I was like, cool. That is not the right answer when someone calls you Gia. Gia died of HIV from so much intravenous drug use. If someone calls you Gia, you probably need to ask for help the same day. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was the biggest compliment. Yeah, I didn't last long the first time around. I had a great career. I was a Calvin Klein girl. I was in American Vogue. I was on late night talk shows. And then I was gone because I could not handle the pressure. And it's not to say the pressure was right, but I was also a nightmare. And I came back, like, getting my career back was one of the best things about getting sober, because it came to me on my terms. I wasn't desperate. I had a vision board of, like, the things I wanted back in 5 years, and I wanted to do in 5 years now that I had gotten sober. And it was like, publish an art book, get in with a really great gallery, like, get my modeling career back, be on a cover again. All of that happened. It was the most insane list of things. It was the most insane to-do list. It was like the to-do list of a psychotic 6-year-old who wants to be an astronaut, ballerina, doctor. That was my sobriety to-do list. Uh-huh. And I did it. I actually did everything on that 5-year plan in 5 years. I was the astronaut, ballerina, scientist, doctor that 6-year-olds think they can be. But part of that was getting my modeling contracts back. And I got them back in London, New York, Los Angeles, and Paris. And it was the first time in my whole career that I actually walked major shows in Paris.
Wow.
So I didn't have the same accolades. I still did covers. I had my last cover in my late 30s. And I walked my first major French runway show at 38. This is an industry that tells us we're too old to work at 25.
Wow.
So at some point, your agents, when I started, they always wanted you to lie about your age. At 22, I was basically too old to start working, so they made me say 18. At 36, coming in sober, I was like, I'm going to do this my way. Like, I let my agents know. I wasn't a dick to them, but I was like, if I'm going to do this, it has to be on my terms. And I walked for Ekhouse Lotta my first season back. by telling them, I walked in and they were taking my measurements and doing the front, back, side in the outfit. And they're like, and they were just like, very rote. And they're like, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 36. And like, it sounded like a record scratched in the whole room. And Mike yells out, she's 36! And so it yells out, oh my God! And Mike's like, we have to book her! And I'm like, that's not what they said would happen. That's not how this is supposed to happen. But I actually ended up shooting all the looks for them and doing the Vogue article with them for that season. And it was an amazing first season back. I think I walked 7 shows in New York after that one, just back to back to back to back, which for me was, I had never been good at shows, good in quotes. When I started, I was told that my proportions were wrong for a runway, that blah, this, that, the other. I'm like, okay, what else? But when I came back in, I learned that attitude gets you places that measurements never can. And I just started booking shows.
Nice.
I started booking. At one point, I had booked more shows in that. I was the top booking girl for runway that season at my agency, which I was generally the bottom before, generally the last of the last. But I was booking more shows than the girls in their 20s. And it wasn't as the token old girl. It was opening shows. It was closing shows. I closed Clean Estrada. I've walked like everyone who I would want to walk for. I walked, and that was incredible.
Amazing.
I loved that.
Amazing.
I loved that so much. And then I I booked direct for Paris after that, which is not bad for someone whose proportions are wrong for a runway and apparently can't walk in the shoes to save her life, which are things I've been actually told to my face by people whose names you would know.
Wow. Badass, Remy.
I'm proud of it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we've got 2 more questions.
Let's do them.
The first is, where can we find you and how can we support you?
I live in the mountains. Don't find me.
Perfect.
No. I am on Instagram at Remy Holwick, REM as in Michael, YHOLWICK. I love making friends there. I'm working right now with some friends on a couple new projects that I will be announcing there. Things that are on new platforms. I'm starting to toy with the idea of YouTube and TikTok. So stand by for that.
Cool.
But it's also really fun to be at a point in my life where I'm a girl who always has 85 projects. So I'm working on the same ones I've been on for a long time now. Today, I own a skincare brand. It's called Baby Le Baby. It's on Instagram at baby, B-A-B-Y, Le, L-E, baby, B-E-B-E. Very confusing.
Cute.
English baby, Le, French baby.
Nice.
And we're online at www.babylebaby.com. It's 100% natural skincare based on the things I learned growing up about taking care of ourselves naturally, which is a huge passion of mine. Mm-hmm. It's getting plastics, microplastics, petroleum, additives, and synthetics out of my life as best I can. I think that's important for our planet. It's important for ourselves. So that's what I've been aiming to do with this, and it's been really cool to see it grow. So join us there too.
Yay! And the last question, which I ask every guest, is, what does being a comeback kid mean to you, and in what ways are you a comeback kid?
Ah, that's so cute.
Which you definitely are.
I think that at its base, no matter how shit yesterday was, if you woke up today and didn't pick up and didn't indulge in whatever old habit was so destructive that it almost took you out before, that is a comeback kid. Like, it's been very flashy for me. I have a lot of the cash and prizes that I think people think they're going to get with sobriety. They didn't happen overnight. I think I do make this look good because 9 years in, I have the clothes and I have the cool career and I have this incredible kid and this beautiful life. And I'm so grateful for all of it, but it didn't happen overnight. And at the beginning of this, I was waking up on a mattress on the floor with not knowing what city I was in, with a box, like a literal box, because I didn't even have a suitcase of clothes. And I didn't make it look good. I made it look terrifying. And I think that was when I was actually in my comeback phase, because now I don't have to be brave to wake up every morning and choose this, but then I did. then it was all I could do with my whole day was just to grit my teeth and drag myself through and pray for it to get easier tomorrow. And I think that's the actual badass point. I think when you get comfortable and you can start building, like, cool, okay, but I've worked for this, I deserve this. That was the grace of a higher power. That I have no idea how I did, because that was hard as shit. This has hard moments, but I have tools, and I have friends, and I have community. That girl didn't have tools, friends, or community, and she was raw dogging her way through another day to get 30 days. And that was insane. And that's the badass. So if that's you, that's the most badass you will ever be in your life. Like, keep clawing, because it's going to get easier. And once it does, the world will open up and you'll feel better, but you will never be more badass than when you just dragged yourself through the hardest thing you thought you would ever have to do.
Amazing. Remy, thank you so much.
I love you so much.
You're
You're my favorite.
Thank you.